This is a river. And this is also a river. Even this. Yes, it's a river too, but you won't see them bubbling over rocks or glinting in the sunlight. That's because these rivers have all been buried, hidden underground beneath layers of concrete, asphalt, and time. At some point, across much of the United States and other parts of the world, burying rivers became standard practice. We paved over them, built roads and cities on top of them, and diverted their waters into underground pipes and culverts. Yet their presence is still felt, if you know how to look for it. In cities, dips and depressions in the landscape often reveal clues. Water always follows the lowest point in the terrain. So when you're walking through a city, maybe down a steep street in New York or London, you might unknowingly be tracing the path of a river flowing right beneath your feet. A river that most people have no idea is even there. Take Tibbetts Brook, for example. It begins north of the Bronx and winds its way into Van Cortlandt Park, where it feeds a small lake. But somewhere near Tibbetts Avenue, the brook disappears. It dives underground, flowing through a massive 2-channel brick sewer that eventually drains into the Harlem River Ship Canal, a man-made waterway carved out in the 1890s, back when that part of the Bronx bordered Manhattan. But it wasn't always this way. Long before the brook was confined to a tunnel, it was a vibrant freshwater stream flowing above ground. The Lenape people, the area's original inhabitants, relied on this water source for survival. They fished its waters and hunted animals like muskrats, raccoons, rabbits, skunks, and many kinds of birds along its banks. The Lenape called the brook Molu, a word that translates to smooth or small stones, likely a nod to the stream's character. In the late 1600s, a man named Jacobus Van Cortlandt built a dam on the brook to power a sawmill and gristmill. The dam created a small lake. During the winter months, Van Cortlandt would harvest ice from the lake and sell it locally. This marked one of the earliest human interventions that began reshaping the natural flow of Tibbetts Brook. By 1888, the city of New York had purchased the land to create what is now Van Cortlandt Park. At that time, the brook still flowed in plain sight, but as the 20th century rolled in, so did a wave of urban expansion. Between the 1930s and 1960s, several major highways were constructed, slicing through the park. Instead of preserving the brook, city planners buried it, diverting its waters into underground culverts so that swampy land could be dried and developed. To city officials back then, swamps and marshes were nuisances, places filled with mosquitoes, muck, and uncertainty. Covering Tibbetts Brook was seen as a way to tame the landscape and reclaim land for more productive use. But that transformation came with hidden costs. Over time, sediment, silt, and debris accumulated in the buried brook. And in 1979, the environmental consequences reached a tipping point. 4 storm sewers had been illegally connected to the brook, dumping untreated wastewater into its waters. The result? A massive fish die-off in the lake within Van Cortlandt Park. Today, if you walk the streets above it, you'd never suspect the brook still flows beneath. Only in its original headwaters in Westchester County does Tibbetts Brook still resemble a natural stream. Yet the story of Tibbetts Brook isn't unique. It's just one of dozens, if not hundreds, of similar stories across New York City and beyond. These hidden rivers were once vital lifelines for the communities they passed through. But as the city expanded, most of them were covered, redirected, and eventually forgotten. In the 17th, 18th, and even 19th centuries, New York relied not only on the mighty Hudson River, but also on a sprawling network of freshwater streams and tributaries. These smaller waterways provided drinking water, powered mills, supported agriculture, and sustained the local ecology. But in the 1800s, things started to change fast. As New York industrialized and its population ballooned, many of these streams were turned into open sewer drains. They became dumping grounds for household waste, industrial chemicals, and other pollutants. Unsurprisingly, this led to repeated outbreaks of waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid. To solve the problem, city engineers proposed a drastic solution: bury the streams, seal them off in underground tunnels, and used the freed-up surface land for development. And the city listened. While this wasn't ideal for the environment, it did help curb the spread of deadly diseases. It was a practical solution for a rapidly growing metropolis, and one that became the blueprint for countless other cities around the world. Still, nature has a way of resurfacing, literally. Today, some of these buried streams can still be found inside buildings, in basements where concrete has worn away. Tiny channels form as groundwater slowly pushes its way back to the surface. There have even been instances where people reported burst pipes, only to discover the leak was actually an underground stream reclaiming its path. One of the most well-known examples of a lost stream is Sunswick Creek in Queens. Back in the mid-1800s, Sunswick Creek had already started to suffer. Industrial runoff, inadequate sewage systems, and population growth in Long Island City and Astoria turned the once vibrant waterway into a foul, stagnant mess. By 1866, disease outbreaks near the creek became common. The water was so polluted and mosquito-infested that local residents constantly complained of the smell and health risks. In response, the creek was partially diverted into the sewer system around 1893, but that still wasn't enough. In 1915, city officials again proposed filling it in entirely. The estimated cost, over $100,000, a staggering figure at the time, equivalent to more than $3 million today. It wasn't until 1916 that the city finally took steps to reroute household wastewater and cover the creek completely. A masonry tunnel was built, the land was filled in and raised to street level, and Sunswick Creek faded from memory, reduced to a mere trickle beneath the city's foundations. But it's not all stories of loss. Some rivers are being revived. The Sawmill River, for instance, flows for 23 miles through Westchester County and into Yonkers, just north of New York City. In the early 1900s, the final stretch of the river, about 1,970 feet, was buried beneath downtown Yonkers. As the city grew, bridges over the river were expanded and moved closer together. Eventually, it seemed easier to just bury the river entirely rather than keep building around it. For decades, the sawmill flowed unseen beneath parking lots and city streets, but in a rare twist, it was brought back to life. In recent years, city planners undertook a project to daylight the Sawmill River, excavating the buried section and restoring it to an open-air stream. Now, people can walk beside its banks once again. It's a rare success story of urban ecological restoration. Still, stories like this are the exception, not the rule. In Baltimore, researchers at the University of Maryland found that 66% of streams have been buried. In Philadelphia, that figure jumps to 73%. Detroit has lost a staggering 85% of its streams since 1902. And in Washington, D.C., only 30% of the waterways that once flowed through the city in the early 1800s are still visible today. This isn't just an American issue. Take a walk through almost any city center around the world, and you might notice something strange. There aren't many visible rivers. Sure, you'll often see one main river, like the Thames in London or the Seine in Paris, but the smaller tributaries, they're often gone, buried like so many others. In Toronto, Canada, the entire downtown area is built over a vast network of hidden rivers. Clues to their existence can still be spotted: unexpected curves in the road, oddly placed trees, patches of reeds or willows, or even a dip in the pavement, small signs of the living waters below. In Montreal, old photographs show massive sewer tunnels being built to redirect the St. Pierre River. In London, part of the Westbourne River still flows through a large pipe suspended above the platforms of Sloane Square Tube Station, a surreal reminder of what once was. In the end, these buried rivers tell a story not just of urban growth, but of compromise between nature and civilization, health and development, memory and progress. But they're not entirely lost. If you pay close attention, you can still find the rivers hiding beneath the surface. They're flowing under your feet, whispering stories of a time when water shaped the land, not the other way around. And maybe, just maybe, the more we listen, the more we'll find ways to bring them back into the light.